So it was teased that the May BNR was going to be a spicy one, and I think that they have delivered, because it goes beyond just card bannings and impacts to every format, by the way, sweeping changes to every format, but there are also changes functionally, structurally to the Living Legends system. Not a small thing at all, lots to talk about. Let's get into it. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, my Flesh and Blood friends. Welcome back to the channel, and thanks so much for tuning in here on your Flesh and Blood Tuesday morning, for those of you, of course, watching it in the morning. But either way, thanks for tuning in here today, talking the latest BNR coming from Flesh and Blood. And this is a big one, as I talked about, impacts to all formats as well as sweeping changes to the Living Legends system. Now, as of the time I'm shooting this, it is 8:26 p.m. on the Pacific Coast, which means this has been live for just shy of 4.5 hours, give or take 10 minutes or something between me checking phones and meetings, right? Okay, I was still paying attention, don't worry. Now, what I obviously will go through, you can see this hastily put together image here summarizing everything in one spot, or the Cliff Notes version. We'll talk about the format stuff, of course, but what I for those of you who watch the channel often, I passionately love the Living Legends system. It's one of the things I love most about this game. That doesn't mean it's not without its flaws, without its upside and downsides. I made many videos over the years saying this should be changed, this is a concern, whatever, right? All good, right? But I do want to spend a lot of time talking about that. So if you want to skip to that in editing, I'm going to come back and I'm going to put the timestamp right in the middle, plus I'll tag it on the video of when I start talking about the Living Legends system, okay? Because I do, again, that's what I want to spend the bulk of this time on. It's not that the other stuff's not impactful. It super is. We're going to talk about it, especially the Blitz stuff, because I love Blitz. The Commoner stuff, because I love Commoner. But yeah, all right. So you can see again there, everything laid out, and you see a couple of things that are, well, I guess it's only consistent in two formats, to be fair, but CYB, Count Your Blessings, is officially banned. Now, they did quite a bit of lip service in this one, talking about how controversial it was. I thought this one was really well written. Last time we got an update on CYB when they banned blue, there was, kind of a little bit of like, chastising is not the right word, but there was a little bit of like, all right, you're complaining about it, we're going to give you something. And I didn't really catch that vibe this time. They very much do acknowledge that the card's not busted, and competitively anyway. I really like that this is gone. I've obviously been in the CYB needs banned category because of what it's been doing to folks at my locals. There's no secret around that. I've got posts. I don't know if I had videos or not, but I definitely have posts about it. You get it. Now, the real reason, and I'm really glad that Brian mentioned this, because one of the real reasons that I think it needed banned was because Count Your Blessings is essentially a functional fatigue shell in of its own. And Brian had a specific note in the article. Let's see if we can find it. He had a specific note in the article. Yeah, I see it right there in the middle. Basically saying that every hero needs tested into CYB, the CYB shell, if you want to call it that, right? And I think that very much sums up my problem. And for those of you who maybe don't disagree with, or maybe don't agree with CYB being banned, again, there's a lot of arguments for and against it. I want to be very clear of that, right? I'm pro it being banned. I'm glad it's gone. But the main reason wasn't necessarily the NPE, not the brokenness. It was the fact that it was never going to go away, right? And we're going to talk Living Legend later, right? But part of this game and the Living Legend system is that, like, okay, you get some hero in that, like, it's just a problem. At least there's a light at the end of the tunnel that eventually Oldhim will go away, or eventually whomever will go away, right? CYB never had a path to going away other than this. And I'm really glad that Brian mentioned that. And I think that speaks a lot to them being tuned in both to that as well as kind of forward thinking on, we are going to have to deal with this complaint forever. Let's just let the kids have their way, right? I don't know a better way to say it. Now, Germinate, this one makes a lot of sense. Actually, I'm a little surprised this didn't get banned in Blitz as well. Florian's not as big of a deal in Blitz, but it functionally does all the same things. Germinate, like, because it's a blue and there's really no penalty to playing the card, you can just kind of pitch stack it and then kind of just win. So I don't think this one was necessarily on anybody's radar, but I think the logic makes a lot of sense. And then they also kind of give us a little teaser of like something else, maybe perhaps on the way. Scepter of Pain, I think this one makes a lot of sense from just kind of the in-game long plan. You know, this one overall, I think it probably more skews towards, well, I mean, again, they outlined their logic about it, and, you know, it's fine. You'll notice that card also is still legal in Blitz, right? So, and then Bonds of Ancestry, red is back. I don't know, Dylan, TCG Talk, I don't know if you're watching this or man, but I think you've been campaigning for that for like 6 months, 8 months at this point. So you got your wish, buddy, and all the other Katsu mains as well. Right now, Blitz, big changes in Blitz. You noticed I used Stormstriders as the, or maybe you didn't, but I used Stormstriders as the front card for today's thumbnail because I think it's, at least to my life, the most impactful one. So we have Channel Lightning Valley banned. This is because, so Aurora, if we go back to the last skirmish season, Aurora was the mostest winningest hero. I not only think it to be true, but I know it to be true that prior to today, Verdance was actually the best hero. I know that to be true, but you have locals and matchups and just a lot of people loving Aurora, and that led to that. But I know it to be true that Verdance is the best hero. Okay. That said, Aurora does all the things in Blitz, and sometimes if you just get the combo, it's over, right? So Flicker Wisp being gone, 100%. I don't even care in my, like, I play one of them for fatigue matchup. I don't even care. Get it out of here. Makes complete sense to me. CLV is kind of a bummer for Azalea, but it makes sense to me for Aurora. And I think it'll be okay. Like, I think it doesn't functionally change anything she wants to do. It just makes her less powerful. I think it's fine. And then Stormstriders. I mean, this is the big discussion point for Blitz, obviously, right? Because it's always been so disproportionate, right? Because Stormstriders basically, right? If you think about it plus Emeritus and then Waning Moon, right? Which, yes, I get it. Moon is its own thing, right? But you get to kill range faster in Blitz. I mean, oh my gosh, Andrew, what? Right? And there was actually a while, if you go all the way back to the very first Worlds that was in San Jose, they banned it prior going in because of the fear of Kano. Now, Icelander ended up still winning that, right? Because Hamilton ran Icelander in both. So, and at that time, the points for Worlds were actually split up. It was 300 points for Worlds, 200 went to the CC hero, and 100 went to the Blitz hero that was played because Blitz was still legal for Worlds, right? And then, so they banned it like 2-3 weeks ahead of Worlds, maybe a month ahead of Worlds, whatever the timeline was. And then in the next BNR, it came right back. So there was a lot of like tinfoil hat conspiracy theories. It's like, we just didn't want to have bad games on stream, right? But they brought it back, and then Kano went crazy. You know, a little later, Kano went crazy. And then you had basically Blaze came on, and then, I mean, I guess now you have Blaze, Azalea, and Verdance. I think that Blaze is probably fine through all of this. I mean, she obviously takes a hit, no question there, right? But I think she's probably okay out of this. Verdance definitely gets knocked down disproportionately to Blaze. Like, it's way more important for Verdance than her. Verdance, I think, now has to very much play a different plan where she has to do like the mid-rangey chip shot things. Because if you had seen any of my deck texts on Verdance, there's functionally two different ways of where you can try and do the combo thing, or you can try to just do like 1/4 moon, 1/4 moon, 1/4 moon, 1/4 moon, 1/4 moon, Stormstriders, right? And throw a felling in there to like do the Icelander type play, whatever, to get a middle down, whatever. But I think now you kind of have to go the combo-y route, which is okay, because a lot of the decks were kind of playing both anyway. As like a, sideboard out if you ran into like a CYB or something like that. So I think she'll be okay. She's definitely, I mean, we'll see what the new meta looks like. I don't think Verdance is going to be the best deck in Blitz anymore. And then you also take out just the complete negative BS of CYP Terra. So that is gone. And now he has to like probably, because Crown of Seeds is back, remember, so he'll just Seeds, he'll put a card in Arsenal, he'll pitch a blue to Seeds, prevent 1 to Tectonic and 1 get one for his might token to swing his hammer the next time, and then use whatever he has for blocking in between, right? Or some variant thereof. He'll be fine. It's still functionally the same plan, except he can't like take a hit to gain 8 life or whatever, right? So I think this is really exciting for Blitz. I mean, again, as they've shown before, they can always bring Stormstriders back, but I don't think it should come back in Blitz. It's too disproportionate for the health, right? I mean, you only need to get them down to like 7 or 8, right? Oh, you know who I'm forgetting is Emperor. Ooh, that sucks for Emperor. That's kind of his thing. Yeah, we'll have to. I don't even know what Emperor looks like without Stormstriders, actually. Because the natural one, you're like, oh well, if we want to talk like busted stuff, let's go Dynamos. But I don't think he's gonna like do multi-swing. Ooh, interesting. All right, let me know in the comments, Emperor folks, what's Emperor gonna do? I don't know on that one. All right, I want to talk Commoner next. So Reality Fractor just straight up banned. This deck is brutal. Absolutely brutal. And glad to see this go away. They still have Iris, right? It makes a big difference because it comes in for 4 and actually has Go Again if they can do the thing, right? So I think this is really interesting for what it opens up. We haven't seen an Enigma at our Commoner crawls because we all like to play for fun, right? You know when a deck is probably like, when people are feeling like a deck is too good, when my Commoner crawl community like just kind of like all together, like we don't have any like don't do this and people just don't bring it. Like we haven't been bringing Ira, they haven't been bringing Enigma, and you can kind of tell when people are like, yeah, these decks are probably a little too high tier, is when people just don't bring them because they want to explore and do other stuff. So I'm confident that is a good thing. And it does not kill her at all. It does not kill Enigma at all. She just changes to be a little less efficient. Perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. You could argue that maybe some other things could have gone, but they just made big changes to the format last time. So, which to be honest, put this one in a better position, right? Changing Rosetta, taking Rosetta away and changing the multi-damage threats and stuff like that favors Enigma. So I think it makes sense I think it makes sense. All right, now Living Legend, disclaimer, I really don't follow the LL format much at all, but you're seeing some very interesting, and you're not only seeing some interesting things pop up, but you're seeing some of the greatest heavy hitters, bad choice of words, greatest hits, there we go, the greatest hits. So Carrion Husk is banned. That's, hey, Shadow Runeblade, I wonder who that's after. Call is restricted. Okay, makes sense. Edward Dirge is restricted. Succumb to Temptation is restricted. Very, very, very interesting. It's almost like Runeblades have some stuff. What do you think? Do Runeblades have stuff? I don't know. It seems like we've seen a lot of Runeblades getting a lot of LL points granted, not in that system, but in previous system. Now, Crown of Seeds being rebanned again. This is like surprised face. You see how it's not? Okay, there we go. And then Hypothermia unrestricted. I honestly don't. I don't know the format enough to know really what that's going to do to unrestrict it. I understand what the card does. Thank you very much. But I don't necessarily know how much of an impact that's going to have. But yeah, let me know. Let me know in the comments. All right, kids. Now it's time to talk LL points. Okay, so for this, we are going to pull the article up because I want to be able to go down to that spot. So no, I am not going to read it to you. But what's very interesting here is they are tiering the manner in which, so the TLDRs, they're tiering the way in which LL points are earned. So for the first year of a hero, so from, if they're released on, what is it going to be? May 30th for May 30th for the Pirate Heroes until May 30th, 2026, they'll only earn half points or at a half point rate. So if they were to go win like a PQ plus at 25 or whatever, they'd get 12.5 points. Okay. For their second year of legality, they have a multiplier of 1. So that 25 points would count at 25 points. And then after that, any hero beyond 2 years actually accrues rates at a 1.5. So, okay, interesting, right? Now, they're doing this. Now, there's one statement they make up that they're going to keep track of fractional points. That's to like, right, anybody who knows like math and keeping track of money and rounding cents is like, well, I round this cent down, I round this cent down, I round this cent down, I round this cent down. Well, hey, where'd my dollar go? Right. So they are going to keep track of the fractional points and just do net rounding instead of like, you know, piecemeal rounding. I don't know what the mathematical term is. There's probably a finance term for individual rounding versus mass rounding or whatever, but I don't know what they are in the moment, but you get conceptually what I mean. So this is, my net take on this is I think this is a really good idea, but there's a lot of risk with this, okay, on a couple of factors. So let's talk pros. The pro of this is that it gives them buffer room to not have Aurora suddenly just like earn 600 points, right? Something like that. Instead, it's a lowered impact. So what they're not functionally changing it from this standpoint. They're not functionally changing the quote unquote rate at which point they earn points, but there's like a muffler effect, okay? A dampener on this, okay? And that's kind of cool. And then on the high end, having been in the game for 2 years and having a higher multiplier really helps with the concept that we've talked about here in the past, which is bloat, right? There's a lot of heroes that go into the system. And in theory, every hero that comes into the system brings with them a representative 1,000 points, right? But if a hero comes in and they provide 1,000 points but don't earn, maybe let's not say 1,000 because of this, right? But when a hero comes in, they bring with them an implied share of points. And if that hero comes in and they are winning lower than they should be, they can effectively contribute their points to someone else. Now, keep in mind, roughly, was it almost a year ago at this point, maybe 8 months ago at this point, they moved to the set points per season. And the total number of LL points available for a year doesn't necessarily match. Like if we added 15 heroes, we don't get 15,000 living legend points at the back end, right? We all get that. So this is another reason why having the bloat or having this help solve that problem to a certain extent, except that they do still have to win, right? But I would wager that, like, you know, had it always been this way, Kano would probably be gone by now. Is that true? I actually don't know that to be a true statement. But Azalea would almost certainly be gone. Dash IE would be gone. Right. You see, right, even though they're piecemealing the points, it max. Anyway, you get it, right? You all can do the math. So conceptually, I think this is a really good idea. Now, there's a couple things here that I am making some assumptions because I think it's still going to make sense, right? So we talked about, say, the 1,500 per season, right? You know, give or take based on rounding. I still think they're going to offer 1,500 points, but what you could see is, like, let's say Aurora, brand new Aurora, when she drops in May of next year, right? Brand new Aurora comes in, speed runs the board, gets every single win that season. She would get 1,500 points, except she'd only get 750. So, or would she, right? So what I'm trying to say here, hopefully I'm painting the right picture, is I still think they're going to offer 1,500 points for the season, but at the end of the season, based on who won and how old the winners were, there we go. Based on who won and how old those winners were, you might not actually see 1,500 points scored. You might see 2,000 points scored if one of the older heroes is doing well, or you might see only 1,000 points get scored if a lot of the younger heroes are doing well. Now, what's cool, so that's a risk, or is it, I suppose. But what's cool about that is it actually serves as a signpost for us on power creep. Right? Because if we were to, and maybe I'll do this I'd have to like actually sit down and do some spreadsheets and stuff. So I don't know that I will commit to this, but it would be interesting to go backdate and look at someone like an Aurora, right? And if we adjusted not only her points in the time, right? We know that she made 1040 in less than a year. So she would only have 620. But if she continued to eat that piece of the pie, what would that have done really to like the net LL points earned on the year? Hopefully you understand what I'm saying, right? Is like you're still offering the same amount, but it's going to be adjusted in either direction. So what's cool is if at the end of the year we offered, let's say, just at a raw number, right? It's like what, 3 seasons at 1,500, so 45, and then there's probably 1,000, maybe another 1,500 worth of events through the year, right? So let's say 6,000 to 7,000 LL points available in a year. If we only score 5,000 of them because somebody has to win, that means inherently that the younger heroes are taking a disproportionate. On the flip side, if you have 7,000 available and we score 8,000, you know that the older heroes or the more established heroes are starting to win that. And if it's flat, you probably can't extract meaningful data from that because it could be a mix of either. But either way, I think I think this is really exciting as long as we use the data correctly. And the other thing that's going to be fun about this is, there's no shortage of people like myself in the fab world that like using spreadsheets and going back and looking at data. You're going to have folks tracking true LL, right? Which is how many actual points did they earn? Should they have LL'd or not? And that's fun. That's just going to be fun to see where it goes. Okay, now let's take the next step on why this is really risky from a certain point of view. Okay. This is going to because the LL system has never been, I want to preface it with, the LL system from its get-go was never truly designed to be a balancing system. But in the 5 years since, it has certainly served as a safety valve. That is, I believe, to be unarguable, right? We weren't, the main idea is to control it with bans and balance, but the LL system serves as a safety valve. I think that to be a fair statement. Now, what's interesting about this is because the points are dampened, right? Because the points are dampened on these newer heroes, are they motivated to move as fast on the bans, right? Now, that's what we've been promised, is that they'll do the more aggressive banning, or maybe not more aggressive, but more active banning. It's probably the way to say it. And if they do that, I think this is perfect, because then you get the longevity part. But if they don't do that, this is a big risk, right? It's a extremely, extremely big risk. And, I want to read something that I actually said to the Discord earlier. I'll share my thoughts in a video, but in short, in my humble opinion, it's a brilliant idea and concept that also puts more of the onus on them to properly manage. And if they were properly handling it, they actually wouldn't need to have the points. So what I mean there is, right, think about this conceptually, right? With the data points we've just mentioned. This system was not ever intended to be the balancing tool to begin with, just as a safety valve. The only reason we got here is because they weren't actively managing it. So they're having the points to give them more time with which to actively manage it. I believe they can do that, and I believe they can be successful doing that as long as they embody the philosophy change. But there is a certain concern on this, is like they were already supposed to have been doing that, right? So you really have to ask the question of, if everything's working as intended, meaning you're controlling things via bans or balance or whatever, do you actually need to have the points, or should you? Now, so there's that whole part, which is, I think, pretty relevant. That said, I really like this idea because it really lets you take bigger shocks in the system. And I think the reason that being able to absorb a shock in the system is important is because we've all seen what happens when they do things that are not enough time before some large event or something like that, right? People get upset because they haven't had time to test or whatever, right? You're obviously not going to make changes in between seasons for that point. And the way that LL point, even in Classic Constructed, which very much has a year-round supply of year-round feed of Living Legend points into the system, even in Classic Constructed, you still see massive spikes in your seasons, right? RTN season, Nationals season. I mean, Nationals is going to be a bunch of points that's different, right, than the grassroots stuff. But even if you look just at the 3 grassroots, PQ1, PQ2, and RTN, you get, a steady trickle of points and then boom, and then steady trickle of points and boom. So having this muffler on them essentially gives them a 4 to 5 week window in which they can absorb a hit. Now, I still think they're probably only going to be able to absorb that hit once, maybe twice, right? So if you were to look at a Zen in his first life, you know, I think Zen probably would have had 2 hits, right, on his system and would have ended up, you know, because like actually if we go back and look at the history of Zen, if this had been in effect, considering how long, I'll see if I can find the image from my previous Zen video on like what his profile looked like over time. Zen would probably only be at like 600 or so. Well, I guess it would be half because Zen wasn't even legal year. So never mind. He would just be straight up a half. But to my point is like they would still have had, you know, if Zen were to continue to earn at that tail that he was, Zen could potentially be earning 1.5 points in a year and a half from now if they had been able to absorb that hit. So this is really tactically smart under the assumption that they're going to be able to balance it. And, you know, there's always like, again, to my point, they haven't demonstrated they've been able to do that. Again, I acknowledge that going through what they've gone through the last couple months, I think does, you know, start a philosophy change on that. But again, how long does that go for? You know, we all have fleeting short memories. In another 1 to 2 years, do they have the same ban philosophy because now they have this part of the system, right? So you can definitely see the push-pull, right? I think on the surface, this is really good. I'm really excited about it. I'm not super excited about having to add like another couple of like rows into, it'd be columns in this case, into the spreadsheet of, you know, current date, old date, multiplier factor. You know, won't be that hard to figure out, but now I got to go update spreadsheets and stuff. That's okay. That's okay. That's what we don't get paid for, right? To go update spreadsheets. All right, whatever. So hopefully as we've been going through this, you've been letting me know what you think. I would really love to hear great conversation about your takes on the living legend changes. Do you agree with left-hand Andrew, which is this is really brilliant because it lets them absorb a hit? Do you agree with right-hand Andrew that they wouldn't have to do this if they were doing the right thing anyway? Or do you agree with this Andrew, which is, I think there, I tell this to my engineers all the time. There's not always a right solution, but there is a best solution. And I wonder if this isn't it. So anyway, I would love to hear your thoughts below. Thanks for joining. And hopefully as we went through, you were telling me your thoughts on the cards and stuff like that as well. But I really wanted to talk LL. And I will, you know, I think I will do that. I'll maybe, if I can get a couple days, you know, off for a weekend or something, maybe I'll go back and I'll like look at a couple historical case studies and where we would be. And I mean, somebody's already going to go back and do the math and tell us who would be gone already under this system. But I think this is really interesting. And I really hope it works out for them. And again, they can always come back and change. I think it becomes difficult to back out on something like this because, again, it didn't actually, I know I have sunsetting and here we are back. Does it actually say going forward? So the heroes who are still legal won't have, like, Florian, for example, he won't have his points that he has already earned backdated, right? It'll just be his points going forward will be halved. I think that's true. I certainly hope that's true. I hope they don't just like go take Florian and cut him in half, because that feels bad for the Aurora people, right? I mean, it feels bad for everybody who LL'd, I suppose, under a year, but I would assume anything earned, they've got to do that, right? To do a line in the sand and anything earned after that, that's got to be it, right? It's got to be that. Yeah. We will see. It doesn't actually specify that, but that's got to be the way it'll work. So anyway, all right, now we'll sunset this. Thanks for joining. Hoping to get lots of comments. Make sure to do the like and sub thing. I know that we've been here long enough that all the people here probably already did already, but love you guys for that. And go Commando.